Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to discuss something which I've been wanting to make a video actually for quite some time. It's actually about the future of digital Warhammer gaming. Now, for someone like me who's more of a digital Warhammer gamer than an actual tabletop player, I don't really have anyone to play with around my area at the moment. If anyone's from Manchester and wants to play some tabletop games, please send me a PM. I would like to play some Horus Heresy tabletop. I need more friends. But okay, let's get back to the subject. The thing I want to talk about is basically I just want to discuss where the future lies for the digital IP, because over the past, I say past 2 years, past year mostly, we've had an absolute explosion of Warhammer Digital products come to the market. Now, I think one of the things that's down to is that they changed their CEO of Games Workshop, and with every CEO, obviously new business ideas come to the table. And I think this chap who's took over was basically like, just sell the license, let's make money by selling the license to our IP. You know, it really doesn't cost them anything. They obviously get a feedback for the companies using it, so it's like more or less. I'll probably use the term free money for them. You know, they sell their IP. Everything that gets made with their IP has to get consent from them. I know that from speaking to the 40k, the Internal Crusade devs, that everything that gets put into game has to get an okay from GW. So it's not like you can make a license and turn the Space Marines into like ballerinas or something like that. Everything has to be okayed by the actual GW HQ. Now, over the past year itself, most of the games that we've actually got have been games which GW produced via board games. So we have Mordheim, we had Blood Bowl, we had some of the Space Hulk games. So, you know, all big games that were known to GW fans. They basically just turned them into a digital product, which is fair enough because you have a foundation then to make a game. You know, you can go and look at the board game, you can go and look at the rules, you can go and look at the models, and you know, it's simply straightforward than looking at a model and putting it in game and then just copying the game mechanics, which are the rules and stuff, which is it's a fine aspect. But one game they haven't yet touched, and the rumours are out there at the moment, is that Necromunda is going to be the next big game that's going to be coming out to do with board games. Now, if no one knows what Necromunda is, I will leave a comment. I'll put a link in the description of the video, which will link you to explain what Necromunda is. But I'll quickly go over and just tell you what it is. It's basically Mordheim set in the year 40,000 in the 40k universe. Like with Mordheim, you have like the sisters Sigmar and like as gangs, and your witch hunters and stuff like that. In Necromunda, you have like different gangs. It's actually set like on a big hive world. It's actually set on an Imperial Fist recruiting world, which is always a bonus for me, since if it does come out, I'm hoping they have some cool Imperial Fist references and stuff like that. But yeah, it's basically Mordheim set in the future. And if it was, well, if I was to say which developer was doing it, I would suspect the people who did Mordheim would probably get the license for that, since they did such a good job with Mordheim, and the game is basically Mordheim set in the 40,000. Yeah, you know, the year 40k. I would suspect them to get the license, since they probably know all the rules. They've got the setup to just, you know, more or less copy and I won't want to copy and paste models, but you know, copy and paste code and all that kind of stuff, because I would suspect the Mordheim game to be a turn-based game, just like what Mordheim was. I wouldn't suspect it to be something like Vermintide or Deathwing or you know, something like that. It's a turn-based game, so I would expect it to stay a turn-based game. Now, going away from the board games, and what could the next big AAA game be for the 40k franchise coming to the digital market? Now, I know we have Space Hulk Deathwing coming out in November, which I'm really looking forward to. Now, that game looks incredible. Again, you know, we haven't really had that much footage or anything to do with the game. I know we've saw trailers and stuff, but you know, you can't really trust trailers these days. But the game does look amazing. I know Focus Interactive are producing it, which they never let me down on Space Hulk Deathwing, Sorry, they never let me down on Battlefleet Gothic. So I've got my trust set in the game that it is going to be a fantastic game. The way it looks, for me, I might shoot myself in the foot now, but I think it's going to be the best 40k game that we will have so far. I think it even may take the crown off Warhammer Space Marine, which I think it was Relic Entity. No, it was THQ made. So let's see if it can take the crown off that game. Now, for me, looking at the 40k franchise as a whole, the biggest thing they have at the moment that's making them money is the Horus Heresy. Now, for people who don't know what the Horus Heresy is, again, I would leave a link in the description of the video. I'll quickly go over it, and then I'll go into what I think may be coming, and what I hope will come. The Horus Heresy is basically set 10,000 years before the events of Warhammer 40,000. So it's set in the 30k, it's set in the 30,000 millennia. It's when the Imperium was at its height. You know, the Great Crusade was going on. The Emperor and his Primarchs. The Primarchs are the sons of the Emperor, gene-enhanced sons, so they are the fathers of the legions. So, for example, Rogel Dawn, the Imperial Fists come from Rogel Dawn's gene seed, etc., etc. And what happened, there was this swell guy called Horus who didn't agree, and he turned everything upside down, and there was a lot of blood, and people died. A lot of people died. That's the basic overflow. It was basically the Imperium's greatness coming to an end, and from that you have the events of 40k, which rippled through all the 10,000 years where the Imperium is slowly dying. But the Horus Heresy is GW's main income now. If you go to Forge World, if you actually go on the GW site now, they're doing boxes. Like the next box is the Prospero box set, which I've ordered. It looks incredible. But their main income now is the Horus Heresy. For example, the books, when they actually started the Horus Heresy, it started with Horus Rising by Dan Abnett, and I think it was only going to be one book, or I think it was a trilogy of books. It was going to be Horus Rising. I think it was going to end with Galaxy in Flames, with Horus declaring that, you know, he's starting the rebellion against the Emperor, and that was supposed to be it. That was it then, over. But since it made so much money, I mean, I think it got to the New York bestseller list. You know, it was that popular that they were like, right, we need to make a series out of this. And we're actually on, I think it's book 39 at the moment. I think the last book was Praetorian of Dawn, if I'm not mistaken. I think that was book 39. Now, the authors and editors at Black Library said they would like to wrap the series up at the 50 book stage, so 50 books. So if we're at 39 now, that means we've only got really 10 books left in the series, and they're producing around 3 to 4 books a year. So that leaves, I say, 3 years max. 3 years max on the Horus Heresy series. Now, once the Horus Heresy series come to a close and we actually have a definite ending on, you know, what goes on, how the Emperor gets put into the Golden Throne, who kills who, what happens at the Siege of Terror and stuff like that, I can see a lot of Horus Heresy games actually flooding the market then, because the game, the IP itself, the setting itself is such a draw to people. It was like when, like I just said before, it was when the Imperium was at its greatest, so you had all these weapons which have been lost to technology now, which were just general use back then. You know, you had mass legions of Titans, the actual Space Marine legions. They weren't chapters then, they were legions. So you had hundreds of thousands of Space Marines in these legions. You know, you didn't have chapters made up of 1,000 Space Marines. You had hundreds of thousands of Space Marines all smashing each other in the face. It was a war of mass apocalyptic scale. It was absolutely devastating. It was massive. Every battle was not just a couple of Space Marines. It was hundreds and hundreds of thousands of Space Marines clanking and smashing each other in the face. Now, what this leaves us with, an IP, a setting, let's say a setting with so much content available to us. Now, there's a lot of directions you can go with the game. One could be an RTS, but I think the games that we're going to be getting, I know we're going to be getting Dawn of War 3, so I don't know if an RTS will take the thunder away from them. What I'd like, this is my pitch, if I was pitching towards a game, this is what I would suggest. Now, when the Horus Heresy was going on, there was a chap called Malcador the Sigillite. He was basically the second in command to the Emperor. While the Emperor was off fighting demons in the Golden Throne, which Magnus broke, Malcador the Sigillite was basically running the Imperium. Now, he was basically the founder-in-chief of the Inquisition. Let's call it the Inquisition. It wasn't called the Inquisition back then, but he basically laid the founding blocks for the whole the whole Inquisition, which advanced into the Inquisition. And along the lines, he made something called the Knights Errant. Now, what the Knights Errant were, they were basically Space Marines took from different legions. Some actually came from traitor legions who stayed loyal to the Emperor. So basically, these chaps were they were the beginning of the Grey Knights. To cut a long story short, they were the beginning of the Grey Knights, and they answered only to Malcador the Sigillite, and they were basically his agents, and they were sent around the galaxy during the Horus Heresy to do certain things. Like there was assassination missions on Horus himself. They actually infiltrated Caliban when all the stuff that was happening at Caliban with Luther and all that stuff. So they went there to see what was happening with the Dark Angels and all that kind of stuff. Now, from a game point of view, I would think this would be the best angle, because you could be recruited into Malcador's Errant Knights. You could pick which legion you wanted to come from. And from that, maybe you get like bonus traits. For example, if you pick, say you come from the Death Guard, if you're a loyalist Death Guard and you stayed loyal towards the Emperor, maybe you have like better toughness, all that kind of stuff. If you picked an Emperor's Children, maybe you're better at melee combat with swords and stuff. Now, the game itself, I would suggest it would be something similar to Space Marine, where you have that third person type of thing where you're going around fighting chaos, maybe even go to some Xenos where you cross some Eldar and stuff. Maybe the Eldar are involved, because the Eldar did play a bit of an important role back in the Horus Heresy, not as too important as they are in 40k, since the Horus Heresy was more or less focused on the Imperium. But there were alien races around, so maybe you can interact with some alien races. But from a gameplay point of view, I think the Knights Errant would be the best way forward, because you have then this freedom to travel the universe as a marine, a marine from any legion as well. So you're not cut off at being just one legion where you have to focus on that story. You can visit different war zones as well. For example, Garrow visited he actually recruited someone from the Ultramarines during the Horus Heresy when all the Calf stuff was happening. He actually went there. He was sent there by Malcador, so he got to see that war zone, and he got to recruit a librarian from the Ultramarines, who then came and joined the Knights Errant. So you've got this vast option of storylines open to you when you actually play as a Knight Errant. You see, when you actually do play as a Knight Errant, you have the option then to visit some of the major events throughout the timeline of the Horus Heresy. The Horus Heresy itself only lasted, I think, 6 years, so it wasn't like a war that happened over thousands of years. It was basically a 6-year war, and there was a lot of stuff that happened within them 6 years. There's a lot of big battles, a lot of big events. Now, if you was to make a game, say for example I was an Ultramarine, say they made an Ultramarine game where you fight at the Calf, you fight at the Betrayal at Calf, and you're basically stuck in a linear place where you're just fighting word bearers on that planet, and that's it. That's the start and end of the game. Whereas a Knights Errant, you can still take place. Well, you can actually still join that fight with the Ultramarines, and then you can leave, and then you can go and do something else, because you're the agent of Malcador. You need it everywhere. So you can take. You can take yourself to maybe Caliban itself, like I mentioned Caliban before. You got a visit of the Knights Errant. Maybe you go back to do another secret mission. Maybe you can be with Sanguinius at Cygnus Prime as an agent of Malcador to see what Sanguinius is up to at Cygnus Prime. Maybe you can be with the Imperial Fists when Rogel Dawn sent a big expedition force to out to help the people at Istvan. So maybe you can be on board when the Imperial Fist get ambushed of the Iron Warriors at the Battle of Fal. That would be incredible, by the way. So you know, the options grow broader and broader when you're not attached to just, you know, a certain legion and a certain storyline. If you had this thing where you can go around the galaxy and join in some of the major events, I think that would be the best way to go forward. And I actually know Inquisitor Martyr, the people who are doing the 40k Inquisitorial action RPG game, they have that system in game where you can actually go around the galaxy as an Inquisitor and do different missions and stuff. So, you know, the idea is already being used in another kind of game. So, you know, I think it would work in a game where it would be more of a AAA, you know, action blockbuster kind of game. I won't say something like Modern Warfare 3, you know, something like that where it's more you're pressing buttons and stuff. You know, I still want that kind of interaction where you're playing through the missions mostly. But you know, the visualization of the actual game itself is just on an epic proportions of scale of war and stuff. You know, when you're playing through the missions, you're seeing Thunderhawks fly past you. You're seeing drop pods. Maybe you see demons, mass hordes of demons. You know, when you're actually going through the missions, you're seeing hundreds of Space Marines assisting you, pushing forward. You've got these massive, huge battlefields. You know, with Land Raiders and Titans blowing each other up in the background, you know, all that kind of stuff. Because this setting is an epic war. It's the biggest war the Imperium has ever encountered. You know, the Imperium has ripped itself apart, and the Imperium is quite big. So the war itself has to be on epic scales. You probably can tell by my voice, I'm getting so excited. Just saying it, I think I need some water since my throat's going so dry. Now, if anyone's got any better ideas, my idea may be horrible to some people, but if anyone's got any better ideas, I would love to hear them. I would love to post some comments about your perfect 40k game. Maybe it'll be an RTS, maybe it'll be a AAA game, maybe it'll be something completely what we haven't even had before. So if you've got any ideas or, you know, any suggestions, what you'd like, you know, it doesn't have to be Horus Heresy like mine. It could be 40k, it could be fantasy, it could even be Age of Sigmar. Age of Sigmar is a setting which, again, we haven't. I know it's only just come out. Well, it's come out in the past year, but I would suspect that setting it should be getting a digital game quite soon, because even though a lot of people hate it because it killed fantasy, you know, I still haven't forgiven them for killing my glorious Bretonnians. But the setting is, you know, the game itself has done incredibly well in stores. It's sold incredibly well. The models are gorgeous. I'm not gonna lie, they're some of the best fantasy models you'll probably ever see a games company make. The models are absolutely brilliant. So, you know, I would suspect an Age of Sigmar game. So, you know, maybe coming up for an idea with an Age of Sigmar game. I'm not too sure about the lore, so I probably shouldn't really talk about making an Age of Sigmar game. But yeah, maybe an Age of Sigmar game is on the cards. Right, what I'll do, I'll leave it at that, since I've been rambling on for nearly, I think it's 18 minutes now. So I'll probably give you a break from my voice of me just droning on about Horus Heresy. So yep, I hope you enjoyed the video. Like I said, if you've got any suggestions, please post them. I try and read every comment that's posted to my videos, and you know, I always try to respond and interact with all my subscribers and stuff. So please, if you've got any suggestions, please post, and I'd love to read them and get back to you. And you know, maybe a dev will stumble upon the comment section. Maybe the dev will even stumble upon this video, and we may even get a Horus Heresy game made. Maybe, just maybe. But then again, hope is the first step to disappointment. So, thanks for watching, chaps. It's been really fun. I've actually really enjoyed making this video, just sitting here in front of my computer, just rambling on, just looking at my screen and just rambling on about dreams. So, yep, I've enjoyed it. Thank you for watching, and have a great weekend, because it's Friday. So, have a great weekend, and yep, I'll see you all quite soon. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.